It's diligence itself this side. You wouldn't be after leaving half undone like a man with only one cheek shaved." Judy affected an Irish brogue at some occult reason of her own. "Sure, and if you'd just step down and examine it yourself, it's quite aisy you'd be in your mind." The captain hid a slight smile in his moustache. The little girl looked so comical standing there in her short old pink frock, a broken-brimmed hat on her tangle of dark curls, her eyes sparkling, her face flushed, the great scythe in her hands and the saucy words on her lips. He came down and examined it. It was done excellently well, like most of the things Miss Judy attempted, mischief always included, and her little black-stockinged legs were still in a good state of preservation. "Hum. Well, you can finish it then, as Pat's busy. How did you learn to mow, young lady of wonderful accomplishments?" He looked at her questioningly. "And what made you set yourself such a task?" Judy gave her curls a quick push off her hot forehead. "A. Faye, it was inborn in me," she answered instantly, and B. Sure, and I don't love you and delight to please you." He went in again slowly, thoughtfully. Judy always mystified him. He understood her the least of any of his children, and sometimes the thought of her worried him. At present she was only a sharp, clever, and frequently impertinent child, but he felt she was utterly different from the other six, and it gave him an aggrieved kind of feeling when he thought about it, which was not very often. He remembered her own mother had often said she trembled for Judy's future, that restless fire of hers that shone out of her dancing eyes and glowed scarlet on her cheeks in excitement and lent amazing energy and activity to her young lithe body, would either make a noble, daring, brilliant woman of her, or else she would be shipwrecked on rocks the others would never come to, and it would flame up higher and consume her. "Be careful of Judy," had been almost the last words of the anxious mother when, in the light that comes when the world is going out, she had seen with terrible clearness the stones and briars in the way of that particular pair of small, eager feet. And she had died, and Judy was stumbling right amongst them now, and her father could not "be careful" of her because he absolutely did not know how. As he went up the veranda steps again and through the hall, he was wishing almost prayerfully she had not been cast in so different a mould from the others, wishing he could stamp out that strange flame in her that made him so uneasy at times. He gave a great puff at his cigar and sighed profoundly, then he turned on his heel and went off towards the stables to forget it all. The man was away, exercising one of the horses in the long paddock, but there was something stirring in the harness room, so he went in. There was a little dripping wet figure standing over a great bucket, and dipping something in and out with charming vigour. At the sound of his footsteps, Baby turned round and lifted a perspiring little face to his. "I's washing the kitsies for you, and flibberty gibbet," she said beamingly. He took a horrified step forward. There were two favourite kittens of his, shivering, miserable, up to their necks in a lather of soapy water, and Flibberty Gibbet, the beautiful little fox terrier he had just bought for his wife, chained to a post, also wet, miserable, and wobbegone, also undergoing the cleansing process, and being scrubbed and swilled till his very reason was tottering. "They're so clean and nicey, no horrid old fleas in 'em now, aren't you glad? You can let Flibberty go on your bed now, and Kitsy Blackeyes—" Poor Baby never finished her speech. She had a confused idea of hearing a little swear word from her father, of being shaken in a most ungentle fashion and put outside the stable, while the unfortunate animals were dried and treated with great consideration. But the worst was yet to come, and the results were so exceedingly bad that the young Woolcots determined never again to assume virtues that they had not. Bunty, of course, desired to help the cause as strongly as the others, and to that end his first action was to go into his bedroom and perform startling ablutions with his face, neck, and hands. Then he took his soap-shiny countenance and red, much-bescrubbed hands downstairs, and sunned himself under his father's very nose, hoping to attract favourable comment. But he was bidden irritably go and play, and saw he would have to find fresh means of appeasement. He wandered into the study with vague thoughts of tidying the tidy bookshelves, but Pip was there, surrounded with books and whittling a stick for a catapult, so he went out again. Then he climbed the stairs and explored his father's bedroom and dressing-room. In the latter there was a wide field for his operations. A full dress uniform was lying across a chair, and it struck Bunty the gold buttons were looking less bright than they should, so he spent a harmless quarter of an hour in polishing them up. Next he burnished some spurs, which also was harmless. Then he set about for fresh employment. There was quite a colony of dusty boots in one corner of the room, and there was a great bottle of black, treacly-looking varnish on the mantelpiece. Bunty conceived the brilliant idea of cleaning the whole lot and standing them in a neat row to meet his father's delighted eyes. He found a handkerchief of the floor, of superfine cambric, though dirty, poured upon it a liberal allowance of varnish, and attacked the first pair. A bright polish rewarded him, for they were patent leather ones, but the next and the next and the next would not shine, however hard he rubbed. There was a step on the stair, the firm, well-known step of his father, and he paused a moment with a look of conscious virtue on his small, shiny face. But it fled all at once, and a look of horror replaced it. He had stuck the bottle on a great armchair for convenience as he was sitting on the floor, and now he noticed it had fallen on its side and a black horrid stream was issuing from its neck. And it was the chair with the uniform on, and one of the sleeves was soaked with the stuff, and the beautiful white shirt that lay there waiting for a button was sticky, horrible. Bunty gave a wild, terrified look round the room for some place to efface himself, but there were no sheltering corners or curtains, and there was not time to get into the bedroom and under the bed. Near the window was a large-sized medicine chest, and in despair Bunty crushed himself into it, his legs huddled up, his head between his knees, and an ominous rattle of displaced bottles in his ears. The next minute his father was in the room. "Great heavens! Bless my soul!" he said, and Bunty shivered from head to foot. Then he said a lot of things very quickly, foreign language as Judy called it, kicked something over and shouted "Esther!" in a terrifying tone. But Esther was down in one of the paddocks with the General, so there was no reply. More foreign language, more stomping about. Bunty's teeth chattered noisily. He put up his hand to hold his mouth together, and the cupboard, overbalanced, fell right over, precipitating its occupant right at his father's feet, and the bottles everywhere. I haven't, 'twasn't me, 'twasn't my fault," he howled, backing towards the door. "Hoo-yah, boo-boo, Esther, boo-yah, Judy, oh!" As might be expected, his father had picked up a strap that lay conveniently near, and was giving his son a very fair taste of it. "Oh, 'twasn't me, 'twasn't my fault, it's Pip and Judy, oh, the pantomime, boo, you're killing me, boo-hoo, I was only doing it to please you." His father paused with uplifted strap. "And that's why all the others are behaving in so strange a fashion? Just for me to take them to the pantomime?" Bunty wriggled himself free. "Boo-hoo, yes, but not me, I didn't, I never, true's faith, oh, it wasn't my fault, it's all the others, hit them the rest." He got 3 more smart cuts, and then fled howling and yelling to the nursery, where he fell on the floor and kicked and rolled about as if he were half killed. "You sneaks!" he sobbed, addressing the others, who had flown in from all parts at his noisy outcry. "You mean pigs! I hadn't no foul, and I've had all the beating, you sneaks! Oh, I'm bleeding all over, I know." They couldn't help laughing a bit. Bunty was always so irresistibly comic when he was hurt ever so little, but still they comforted him as well as they could, and tried to find out what had happened. Esther came in presently, looking very worried. "Well," they said in a breath. "You really are the most exasperating children," she said vexedly. "But the pantomime, quick, Esther, have you asked him?" they cried impatiently. "The pantomime? He says he would rather make it worth Mr. Rignold's while to take it off the boards than that one of you should catch a glimpse of it. And it serves you very well right. Meg, for goodness sake, give baby some dry clothes. Just look at her. And Judy, if you have any feeling for me, take off that frock. Bunty, you wicked boy, I'll call your father if you don't stop that noise. Nell, take the scissors from the General. He'll poke his eyes out, bless him." The young stepmother leaned back in her chair and looked round her tragically. She had never seen her husband so thoroughly angered, and her beautiful lips quivered when she remembered how he had seemed to blame her for it all. Meg hadn't moved. The water was trickling slowly off baby's clothes and making a pool on the floor. Bunty was still giving vent to spasmodic boos and hoos. Judy was whistling stormily, and the General, monksed of the scissors, was licking his own muddy shoe all over with his dear little red tongue. A sob rose in her throat, 2 tears welled up in her eyes and fell down her smooth, lovely cheeks. "7 of you, and I'm only 20, she said pitifully. "Oh, it's too bad. Oh, dear, it is too bad." End of chapter 3.